Thank you all for joining us. Just going to give another minute to let everyone else join. That's my dog Scout, honorary 2030 commitment member. She likes to join. So Ina, if you can monitor the waiting room and make sure everyone gets in as we move forward, that would be great. So I am Melissa Moranci, AI staff, point of contact for the 2030 commitment. Joining me is my colleague Ina Bakioki from AIA. So if you email the 2030 inbox, it's often her that you're communicating with. And also joining me is Jesse Walton from the 2030 Working Group. So I've got the AIA side. Jesse has the technical, I've done it before side. And we're going to talk about submitting portfolios today. All right. So the first question I want to ask everybody here is everyone admin in your firm? Because you cannot submit your portfolio if you are not the admin at your firm's account.
DDX.
The DDX. We gotta make sure you're admin. So that's the first and foremost, most important thing about submitting. All right, we've got a lot of yeses, thumbs ups.
Actually, I'm not an admin, and can we have multiple admins from one firm?
Yes, you can have multiple admins.
Great, thanks.
All right, so if you are not admin, you can email the 2030 commitment inbox or someone who is admin at your firm, and they can change your status. So I prefer you go through the admin at your firm. They can change your status in the back end of the DDX, or they can request that AI do that if they cannot remember how. But it is the most important part of submitting your portfolio, and that you don't have access to that part of the DDX.
He is with me, so I'll make sure he's an admin soon.
Thank you, Mark. That is perfect. So the other thing I wanted to touch on is a major part of submitting our portfolio, if you are doing bulk import, is making sure that you are using the right spreadsheet. So has everyone who is doing 2030 reporting through the bulk import, have you uploaded the most recent spreadsheet to make sure all of your data is aligned? I dropped a link in the chat to the bulk import page in our help pages, and I'll share that right now. You can download the most recent version over here. I recommend the Excel. You can look at our bulk import guide that walks you through it, but reporting. Yep. Did I hear a question? Reporting will be very difficult if you are doing bulk import if you do not have the right spreadsheet. So for your sanity and ours, make sure you are working with the correct one. Go through this step by step and dumb it down for us. Sure, we can go more basic.
Quick question, Melissa.
Yes.
So if you don't do the bulk import, I mean, is that the only way to report it, or do you do like individual reporting?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that question?
do you have to go through bulk report or can you do it individual?
You can do it
Okay.
individual. So
Okay.
we'll back that up. All right. There are 3 ways to report your portfolio. One is through creating projects like this in the DDX interface. So inputting each individual project, like Madison just mentioned. The second is uploading projects through the API through your energy modeling software. And the third is bulk import. So those are the 3 paths to adding projects to the DDX. Does anyone have any questions about those 3 different paths and how you get the projects into the DDX?
So if you're using the API method, you do not have to first set up a project through this method that you're showing, correct?
I do not believe so. Jesse, do you know? I don't think so. You have the information in your,
Yeah, I've used the Cove Tool API, and I believe once you link your DDX account with Cove Tool, your Cove Tool account, there's like a little hash number you have to import into the either Cove Tool or Autodesk or whatever program is using API to put project information into the DDX. Once that link is made and you save a project, I think it pushes it to the DDX. You don't have to create a project in the DDX first,
Okay, thank you.
but you have to have that link though.
Right. Similar with the Autodesk Insight.
and you have the keys and the links.
Yep.
So you should be good and you should be able to report through that. You.
Okay. Thank
So
you.
Can we
those-
use, sorry,
Alexandra.
can you use, can you combine those methods?
Yes. Yes, you
Okay.
can. You can definitely use a combination of methods. So there are some firms that I believe one of the members of the 2030 commitment working group or DDX subgroup, he called it seeding the DDX. So he used bulk import to kind of add the basic profile for each of the projects, but then goes back in through looking at the portfolio and will edit projects like this after they're in there and add more information once they have kind of a basic profile in the DDX. And there are some people who might add projects through the basic interface if they aren't doing energy modeling, and then add the projects that they are doing energy modeling through the API. And that's fine too.
Thank you.
Any other questions about getting projects into the DDX?
I have a question. This is my first time doing this. So if I do the energy modeling through Autodesk Insight, how would I import that? Which method would I use?
So that would be through the API. So we talked about firm key and user key. So if you're in Insight, it's going to ask you for this piece of information. So your firm key, and then you have to generate a new user key every 24 hours while you're using that. And that information will connect Insight to the DDX on the Insight side. So you type that information on the energy modeling side, and it will send it into the DDX and create a project profile for that.
Okay. So we'll automatically create all this through the energy model, like the whole, like if the one you were showing in the beginning, like the basic information, will it import all that, or will I have to go back and add all of that in through the spreadsheet or whatever?
Can you repeat that question again?
So when I do the energy modeling through Insight, will all the basic project information get imported or do I have to go back in and edit any of that information? Like the stuff that's in the spreadsheet that you send.
Yeah, most of, sorry, you go.
It's my understanding from using the Cove Tool API that it will push all the project name, project location, climate zone, zip code, et cetera, some general information, as well as your baseline target and predicted
Okay.
EUI from the API to the DDX. And you should not have to edit anything. You can if you want to add more design data. Say if the EUI you imported last year with the API, and this year you added PB or something and you want to change your net EUI, you could add that in manually, or you could also use the API again to push it in.
Okay. Cool, thank you.
We do recommend that you check projects. So admin, regardless of if projects have come in through the API, bulk import, or individual reporting, that you then, as the admin, look through those projects before you submit the entire portfolio. So you are QA, QC, you look through and make sure that the information is what it should be.
Can you choose, if you're using the API like from Cove Tool, can you select which projects are getting sent over to the DDX? If you just only want, because we end up with, 10 projects of the same thing, and I don't want it uploading everything.
I can't recall exactly how Cove Tool works, if you have to push a send button or if it's just automatic every time you edit the project, it pushes it. I can't remember. So I would go to the Cove Tool
Okay, I'll check it out.
section and
Thanks.
see how that works. But I would say the thing, at least for the bulk upload, and I would assume it's the same thing with the API, the thing that ties new data to old data is the project number. So as long as your project number is the same for bulk upload and you have a new EUI or new net EUI, when you push that up, it will add it as a next phase design data, but it won't add a new project as long as your project number is the same.
It looks like we have a lot of great conversation in the
So you have
chat.
to just hit the send button at Cove Tool. Yeah.
So all right, so these are the different methods and modes of getting information into the DDX. So that is what will populate your portfolio. So we had some questions about this being the entire method for reporting. And this is really geared towards that. This was to be really geared towards the last step of just submitting the portfolio. So I'm going to ask a question to the group. How many here are looking for specific questions about submitting your portfolio and that last moving projects from your portfolio into the submit process? And how many are looking for earlier questions in the process and getting projects into the DDX? If you can put that in the chat. So if we need to pivot our content for today, we can do that. All right, let's start with the final submission part, because it does feel like there are quite a few people here who are here for that purpose. And if we have time, we will loop back to the entire process. And Ina, if you could also drop in the chat all of the additional Ask Us Anything office hours for whatever we don't get to today. I know that there's another Ask Us Anything on next Tuesday and every week until submitting. So I do want to respect that this is supposed to be about the final submission and that a lot of you might be here for that purpose. So let's start with assume that you have miraculously gotten all of your projects into the DDX from any of those 3 paths, API, adding projects into the DDX interface, or bulk import. And we'll talk about those 3 paths either later today or next week. And you have a really strong portfolio. And I will walk through the specific of the bulk import version, because that does appear a little bit different. So I have an entire portfolio of projects. And if I organize them, you can see there are a whole bunch of them that don't have years. And there are 104 total projects that I have. So if I'm looking at 100 per page, I'll have other years show up versus just 2022. Or I'll have a green swirly. So there are projects from 2021, and then we get into the projects from 2022. So it's just important to remember that the portfolio is bigger than perhaps what I'm actually submitting. I might have test projects that I don't want to submit. I might have projects that I haven't updated in 2022. And if I'm doing that on purpose, that is okay to not submit the whole thing. So if I am submitting this way, I have my projects in there from any of those 3 methods, but primarily API or using the interface is how I would look at those. I want to say that I'm reporting in 2022. I'm going to continue. And then you see how many I have reporting data specifically for 2022. And I have a lot less projects. I only have 24 projects that I have updated reporting data for 2022. So this is that QA QC part we sort of talked about. Is that right for my portfolio? Are there projects that should have been updated that were not? Is that too many projects? I see there's a project that says test. I might want to uncheck that and not submit that with my portfolio. And I have the ability to do that here. So I could uncheck everyone that says test and make sure that I don't submit that with my portfolio. But that is what this little page gives you the option to do. So it is important to kind of have a good understanding of what you're trying to submit here. And this is your last ditch of being able to fix it. I have to say that I confirm that this snapshot reflects my company's full design portfolio for 2022. We do want firms to submit their entire portfolio. We know that that's not always possible, but we want people to do their best to share everything, not just the good ones in particular, and not just the ones you have energy modeling for, but if you have other projects that you are designing to code, we want to see them. So I'm going to say I confirm that this is a snapshot of my full design portfolio. And this one you can choose to give us consent to publish your company's EUI or not. That is up to you. So if I say I don't want that, then I can continue. And then you'll get this page and it will tell you that you have submitted your portfolio. The admin POC will then get an email later that confirms that the entire portfolio has been submitted, and you get your little badge and your number for the year. So that is separate, and that's a little different than last year. You used to be able to download them from this page, but we found some of the bigger firms that had way too many projects. This page was timing out and they had to submit their portfolio again, and it got messy. So instead of having an issue with the large portfolios, we decided to just go to this cute little simple landing page. And you will receive an email later with the reporting information. You can also fill out a survey about your overall experience with submitting your portfolio. So that is, if you already have projects in the DDX, how the actual process of just submitting your portfolio goes. For those who are looking for that information, are there any questions? Seems pretty simple.
In
but-
the past, we've
Yeah.
been able to submit more than once. So say you get to this point, you submit it, and then you look at your reports tab and something seems off, you can look at it again, you can QC it again, and then submit it again
Correct. It
for
will
the same
say,
reporting year. Yeah.
and it will say you have already submit, and you can do that up until March 31st. So if you realize there's another mistake, it'll just override your last version. If you try, you can actually resubmit last year's portfolio if you wanted to, but it wouldn't make any difference on our side because we do a pull of data, like a snapshot. So the reporting information wouldn't be different. I have submitted my portfolio about 10 times this year in different webinars and practice. So definitely possible.
When do you guys pull the data? Just curious.
When all the data is in. So it depends. You know, we'd love to pull it in April, but usually we spend a fair amount of April working out some kinks in data, particularly some of the really, really big firms, big spreadsheets. We have to work with our developers to work through some of that. So the goal is sometime in April.
I'm inheriting this from someone else in our firm who is no longer with us. I see projects that have been historically put in DDX but have never been reported as a portfolio. So I don't have I have neither a portfolio nor any reports from past projects. What would you recommend moving forward? Should I go back in past years, and how do I decide which year a project should be reported in?
I would just concentrate on this year. So Jesse, what did you think?
Yeah, I'd make sure you're an admin too, so you're seeing all the projects there in your portfolio. Because if you're just a user, you would only see projects you've entered in.
All right, so I don't want to take up everybody's time, but there's only like 4 projects because our firm is not very large. How do you decide which projects are reported in DDX? I mean, some of them don't apply to the 2030 requirements in terms of having lighting or energy modeling. But it doesn't seem right that we only have 1 project in for an entire year. Am I just a small firm and therefore looking at it differently?
So even if a project doesn't have an energy model, you can still report it. There's a way to add data and say you're just complying with the local energy codes, and the DDX will give you an estimated % efficiency based off those energy codes and the use type and the project size and the location, a bunch of metrics. So I would say even if you don't have an energy model, you have a small handful of projects that you know have mechanical systems and building enclosure, or if they just have lighting power densities, and submit those too. Does that help?
It does. And I think that the conclusion is that we just don't have a lot of projects that meet the requirement. I mean, they're just small interior renovation type projects that don't have mechanical systems or even lighting.
Yeah,
systems.
if it's just finishes or no light fixtures and no MEP or envelope. So, yeah,
Okay,
we
thank you.
submit
That's helpful.
those.
All right, so I want to address a couple of questions in the chat. Can you explain how the give consent to have AI publish EUI data is used? Normally in our report. So we have an annual by the numbers report. And you know, if you could drop in the link for that, that would be helpful. And we might use you as a case study. And so that is helpful for us to know that we can highlight your form in talking about the kind of projects you use. All other data in the DDX and all aggregate data is anonymous. We do not share overall projects. We do not share firms' EUIs unless they click that, giving us the permission to do so. And honestly, we would probably check with you again before we actually publish anything like that. And so I do want to make sure that we all know that the data that is put into the DDX is anonymous and then aggregated, and we then kind of make these larger level graphs and kind of assumptions for the program and the industry. Another question, if we can walk through it one more time in a minute. Let me see a couple of these questions. Can I resubmit a project that we have submitted last year and have changed the design process? Definitely, we want you to. If it is still a part of your portfolio, we recommend that you do that. So let me see if I can find a project. So this is a 2021 project. And I can go in here and track data. And now I'm saying it's in construction administration this year instead of construction documents. And if I had additional predicted energy use, I could put that here. Let's just say for this, I do not. I can add that. And I have now created another little dot on my graph and added that to my 2022 portfolio.
If you scroll down, Melissa, you can see the location where the different data is put in. So keep going. Yeah, the
Yep,
design phase data. So here you can see what years it was put in for concept, SD, GD, CDs, and then what the EUI was, if it was entered in.
Okay, that was my question. I have a follow-up. Can I submit like multiple entries for one design phase? So like it's still in construction documents, but we submitted it under construction documents last year. So can I have two? Or do I have to
Yes.
change the, okay, I can.
Yes, I often have projects that are in CA for 2 or 3 years, and we just keep submitting them every year until
Okay.
they close out. They hit substantial completion.
Thank you.
And I have a follow-up question to that. If a project was on hold last year, or for 2022, do we just change the status for reporting this year to hold?
Yeah, if a project was active in 2022, I would say report it, even if it went on hold in say January or February. But then the next year, if it's still on hold in 2023, I would not report it for 2023. It would be on hold in 2023.
Even if we'll have an updated energy model for the next time, for the next reporting session? So you can like have a year that you don't report anything and then come back?
Yeah. Yep.
Oh,
You
okay.
can leave it on hold and then bring it back alive to have new design data.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Can I ask a quick follow-up question to that? So if you scroll down just a little bit, there's a column that is for action, where it says to mark complete. If you do you only mark complete if the project is like constructed? Is that what mark complete means, or just mark complete when you're done reporting that project for that year?
For me, it's substantial completion. So when I say mark it complete, when you're no longer reporting design data, when you want to then start reporting use data, right? Because the DDX actually does allow you to report actual EUI data, not just predicted EUI data.
So we can actually demonstrate that right now. So
That'd be great.
if you complete it, it asks you to kind of close out the project. What is the information? That final occupancy. So we're going to say that it's completed, confirm closeout. And there's a place here that'll ask you for post-occupancy data. And I believe it shows up down here as well. You can add post-occupancy data and report that for that year as well. So if you had post-occupancy data in December, you can then insert that here.
Okay, I just want to make sure I didn't have to mark complete for me to submit the reporting.
To submit it, no, you do not.
Okay.
Yeah, it would be active if you want to submit it.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
All right, I'm trying to catch up with the rest of the questions. Does embodied carbon affect the progress of the project, or is it primarily operational carbon? So we have different places. If you look at the by the numbers report, where we report out predicted energy use intensity, which is operational carbon numbers, and the embodied carbon is in a different place in the report. So while the heart and origins of the 2030 commitment are with the predicted energy use intensity, so PEUI, we still have that, and that is the numbers that we can track from the program's origin. we are now tracking embodied carbon, the progress on that, and how people are doing. So we do not have an overall roll-up number right now, so a total carbon number, but that is something we're looking at in the future.
And you can submit just embodied carbon data or just operational energy data or both for each year's submission on each project.
Okay, thanks.
All right. I see Ina's asked answered some questions in the chat about the report. Then if you mark a project as complete, the project is marked complete, but you add post-occupancy data, does that mean it needs to be reported again for 2022?
I've never run into that. I honestly don't use the DDX to track actual EUI data, so I've never had that project like pop up in the list of if you want to submit it or not. Maybe I need to run an experiment. Figure that out.
What is AIA determining as target EUI, gross EUI, and net PEUI? So the baseline is based on ASHRAE 2003. So we use, when you put in your target, well, when you put in your baseline, it goes to zero tool, and that indicates what the project would have been operating at in 2003. And then the target is saying that you are trying to reach an 80% reduction from baseline. So that is what you're kind of aiming for to meet the 2030 goals for this year. So that is what your target is. You can technically change your target for your firm if you are not quite aspiring to the whole 80%. That is something you can change, but that doesn't have to. You can just kind of keep that aspirational goal there. The gross PEUI and net PEUI are based on if you have energy modeling information. So if you go into adding design data, oh, I can't do that here because I completed this project and we're in postdoc.
Can you make it active again or no?
I think so.
Flexing the DDX here. Yes.
I can. I've done that before. But that's because I only deal in per ton projects. So if you have predicted energy information, if you did an energy model or someone did an energy model on your behalf for this project, we would ask that you say what date the energy model was done. And since this was in 2022, what tool it was done in. So we'll do Insight, who did it. And then you can either tell us your gross PEUI. So that would be what the predicted energy use intensity is for that building, how much energy you think that that building will use, or your net PEUI. So that would be minus renewables. If you have fuel source information, that information, the gross and net EUI will be calculated for you by the DDX. But we know that some people don't necessarily have all of the fuel sources, and you might just have gross and net EUI, or gross or net EUI. And so all of that is fine to report. So if you only know that its net EUI is 8, that is fine. And you can save that information. And you have some great renewables, and that is wonderful. If you have a gross and net UI, then we know how much you're saving with renewables. Did that answer those questions?
Yeah, that's super helpful. Thank you.
Okay. For projects in California that used compliance modeling for Title 24, is it okay to input the estimated EUIs based on the Title 24 data, or is it preferred to leave off the energy modeling and show code compliance? Is that the information that happens within Title 24? So not, I'm sorry, I'm not incredibly knowledgeable about Title 24 in California. We do have a great place for their codes, although we do not have the 2023 code currently in the DDX because that was not in effect in 2022. That went into effect. I'm sorry, the 2022 code did not go into effect until 2023. So that is not present.
Yeah, I would recommend if you have an estimated EY, even if it's not from a full energy model, that you use that. I work with mechanical engineers, but often early in schematic design, you know, they don't run an energy model, but they know because with these systems, this project type, your EY is going to be about 25 or whatever the number is. And so I'll put that number in and say it's a model number because it comes from a engineer who knows that if they run an energy model, it'll be within that range and it's only in schematic design. So I would think it'd be acceptable to put in your EY, even if it's estimated just from a code sheet and not an actual energy model.
That's helpful.
If you don't know it all, I would just say use code.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, I reached out to our engineers and they came back with like, this is about the energy use that we think, but the caveat is it doesn't reflect all of the design choices that like a performance energy model would, because Title 24 doesn't look at that. But I agree. I understand it being within a range that's acceptable.
Yes. I mean, even an energy model is an estimate, right? So whether it's an estimate from experience or an estimate from computer program, it's an estimate.
We have a question about Canadian energy codes. We do not have any Canadian energy codes currently in our code list, so it cannot be added at this time. We've had a couple of questions on that this year, so it's definitely something we can look into in the future. So I don't actually know what step code means in British Columbia. So if it cannot be added, what should the team use? So we do have a lot of international energy code options in the DDX. So I don't know if there is an equivalent IECC code to that. Or could you help us understand energy code, the step code more, or send us an email about that?
Sent an email, but I haven't received a reply to it.
Okay, you were the one I was looking for in my inbox then. I kept typing in Canadian energy code and I wasn't finding it, so I'll look for your name now.
I'll
Thank you.
reply back.
I knew I had something on my to-do list and I just could not find it. Thank you. I will touch base after this.
Okay, thanks.
All right, so a million years ago, we had the request to do this again and submit the portfolio again. So let's start there. So we have our portfolio. And again, we have this long list of projects, right? Way more projects in our portfolio than we want to report on this year. There are some from 2021. There are some that are tests. So I'm then going to go to submit my portfolio. I'm going to select my reporting year. I'm going to get a little button to whoever asked before. This is what happens if you've already submitted your portfolio. Just get a little yellow warning saying you already did this. And I decided I didn't care. I'm going to do it again. You have the ability to select all the projects or some of the projects here, confirm. Do your quality control and double check everything before you submit it. I don't want to submit my test projects. I confirm that this represents my company's full design portfolio in 2022. This time I'm going to give consent to have AI publish my predicted energy use reduction publicly. And then I'm going to submit. And then I will then get an email congratulating me on my submission, giving me a cute little graph and that little sticker icon, the little badge saying how many years I've reported. And that is how you submit it from within the DDX. I'm gonna submit a bulk import after this. Does anyone want to ask how soon after you submit should you receive a confirmation email? It's not, it depends how big your portfolio is. If we're being honest, my portfolio is not very big. It shouldn't take very long. So for me, it'll probably take 20 minutes or less, and I'll get that email. Definitely double check your clutter, since it is coming from an automated process. It might, if you have 2,000 projects or more, it might take a little bit longer than that because it's processing all of that on the back end before it sends you your confirmation. Can you report new projects for 2022 before the March deadline? You can add projects that were done in 2022 still into the DDX. If that is the question, we are still looking for 2022 data, not projects that have been started in 2023, unless
Right.
I'm misunderstanding.
Yeah, that's okay. Thanks.
You'll do this again next year, and that's when you can have all of your 2023 projects. Although you can start adding them to the DDX and not reporting them. You can get a head start for 2023.
I was upset last year because I got a net zero project in like the first week of January. It's like, damn, I can't include it
No.
for a whole year. I gotta wait.
March 31st is the deadline for 2022 submission. It is the deadline every year. It is always March 31st, except for that COVID year where we gave everyone a little extra time because no one was in the office and they couldn't quite figure out how to tackle the group submission process while everyone was still trying to figure out how to work on architecture projects remotely. So there was a little bit of leeway that year, due to the whole global pandemic thing. But other than that year, it has been March 31st. So we will continue to work on that.
I had another generic question, and I think on the AIA website we see one of the accepted energy modeling tool is Home Energy Saver, which is a free online tool. Is that something we can use to report housing projects?
Not. Are you saying that you saw that in API or you saw that as a potential energy modeling tool?
Energy modeling tool when you go to track data, and
I think there's an other
like Climate
category
Studio.
if you don't have, it's not listed.
Sure. So yeah, I think Home Energy Saver, I came across that right there. So is that something, is that accurate? Have you had projects turned in that use Home Energy Saver?
I honestly have not checked. I have not parsed through the data to see if they have used that particular energy modeling software.
Okay, thanks.
There are a couple more. Why is the firm number showing as 0 reported even after submitting for 2022? I'm going to ask you to reach out to us individually if that is your firm's issue. We can kind of look through. If it's saying 0 reported after you submitted in 2022. If you email the 2030 commitment, we can dive deeper into that potential issue. The old DDX, there was a reporting feature that showed 2 or multiple years for comparison purposes. Can you still do that? It looks like you can only view 1 year at a time now. So that is over here on the reports tab, I believe is what Matt is referring to. You have these graphs after you submit your portfolio that tell you what your net UI is, your energy model. You can sort by location. So that's just one particular firm, and you can sort by year. We do not currently have the ability to compare 2021 to 2022. So I apologize, Matt. It does appear that that is no longer an option. And then I don't have anything listed under top performers. Is that an issue? Francesca, can you clarify?
Yeah, when I go to, so I'm also just taking this over from someone. So when I go to the portfolio tab, under top performers, there's
Mhm.
nothing there.
And you have a large list of projects down.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Email the inbox
Okay.
and we will dive deeper. But let's now report a bulk import. So I am going to, which tab? Import projects through bulk import to submit my portfolio. So to do that, I'm going to choose a file and I'm going to pick this file and I'm going to submit them in 2022. But, and again, it's telling me I already submitted this year. But oh no, I have problems. So it is going to identify where in my spreadsheet there were errors and what the errors were. And it said no office location with that name found in the firm on the these four projects. So I need to go back to my spreadsheet, fix it, and try again. So I have done that in the back end. And I am now going to import my fixed spreadsheet, choose file, upload it, submit them to my portfolio. And again, if you don't want to submit your portfolio now, this is where you could just use this to seed your portfolio and just add projects in. But we're submitting. And then I'm going to import. And I had no errors, which is great. And thank you, your submission has happened. So I submitted that as my portfolio. And I can go and look at the reports tab.
This is the submission process I typically use for about 50 projects a year. And one of the biggest lessons learned is just make sure that, like the error that Such as showed about the office name, you want to make sure that names and numbers and date formats are the bulk import spreadsheet sample file. If one of those formats are wrong, it'll give you an error. You won't be able to upload it.
So this is the example of the spreadsheet. This was the field that was incorrect. What is in this field needs to match, like, exactly to what is in your company field for offices. So what is in this column needs to directly match, like exactly how you write it. If there's a comma, I don't even know if you can do commas, but it says USA Atlanta, just putting it Atlanta will not work. It needs to say USA Atlanta. It needs to say USA DC Washington, which is so backwards. But that's what it says here. Therefore, it needs to match 1-to-1 in the spreadsheet. So I saw Amina, you had a question?
Yeah, my question is, can you bulk upload twice? As in, let's say one for architecture projects that are looking at EY and one for interiors projects with LPDs? Like, can I do two bulk imports?
I don't think so. So I'm going to say, well, it depends.
You
So
can't do two bulk submissions. You could do two bulk imports if you don't submit it. And then you'll just have all the data in from the first submission. You bulk and upload it again with the different projects. You'll have it in there, and then you could submit it after it's all imported, but don't hit that little checkbox that says submit at the same time you bulk import.
So to Jesse's point, when I hit that little thing that said submit this portfolio, it overrode what I had already submitted. I only submitted 4 projects this time. It shows I have, well, 3 projects. I own 3 projects. That is what I have. So that was my entire portfolio. But if I didn't submit or didn't click that little submit now button, it would be, those projects would all become a part of my overall portfolio. And then I would go through that previous submission process of moving that portfolio into the submission. Does that make sense, Amina?
Yeah, I'm just trying to recall what I did last year with checks and unchecks, so I wanted to clarify. Thanks.
That's typically what I do when I bulk upload. I just upload it to import it and not to submit it. And then I kind of look through in the DDX just to see if there's any weirdness. And then I hit the submit button and click on which projects and do it that way. So I kind of separate the upload from the submit
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
workflows.
Alexandra?
I'm just curious if when you do the bulk upload, if you can see those, let's say I did like manual upload and then I did some upload through like Cove Tool and then I did bulk upload. If I go to portfolio page, can I like see how projects were uploaded?
No.
Okay.
Jesse, you seem to be thinking about it. I can't see how projects were uploaded on the back end.
Yeah, I don't think there's like a field that says it, but if you go to the design phase data, it'll tell you when it was created. So if you open up any of those projects, so that design, if you're putting design phase data in your bulk upload, that date and time will mark the time of the bulk upload. Yeah, right. But I think it says how it was done.
Okay.
Yeah. So Matt Krieger asks, what time of year do you update the bulk reporting spreadsheet, or how often does it typically update? So we update it when any of the fields are updated. So it is updated for the new reporting cycle. We finalized this spreadsheet December and uploaded it to the website around that time. And so we did try to communicate a lot this year about the new spreadsheet and that it's important to use it, but we did not send it out 6 months earlier in case any of you have an internal database that you were working with. So there was no kind of heads up that far in advance.
The vast majority of the fields are the same. I
Yeah.
think there's only a couple new ones.
There are only a few changes. It would actually be if you had the appropriate layout last year. The only real differences are there was one PEUI column last year. And now we have split it up into gross and net. And honestly, you can just add another column and put all of your data in gross if that is what you have. And we broke up offsite renewables into 2 sections in the back. So offsite renewables, no, that's not it. Here we go. In the fuel sources, offsite renewables, purchased and dedicated. And those are the only updates that happened to the spreadsheet this year, are those fields. So if you have last year's spreadsheet, and that was a format you've been collecting all your data in, it might be easier just to kind of add those columns within the spreadsheet you're already working in and make sure it matches. This spreadsheet does have a lot more information in it than previous years. So what someone else did, they color coded the options and added gas needs to be in therms. So we actually know what some instructions on how to properly use the fields in the spreadsheet versus just in that just in the bulk import guide. Alexandra?
Silly question. I obviously haven't done the bulk import, that's why I'm asking it. So just to clarify, I cannot add any custom columns or anything like this for my, I don't know, internal purposes for this bulk report spreadsheet, because otherwise it just won't work.
Yeah, that's correct. And internally, I do have a bunch of custom columns, but then once I want to upload it, I have to get rid of those, or I just actually copy from my spreadsheet that I'm using to track all of our project data, because we track envelope data, we track a bunch of other embodied carbon data beyond what the DDX requires. We just extract that data out of our spreadsheet and put it into the format for the DDX and then upload it.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. We've got just 3 more minutes. There is a recording. I believe Ina dropped our YouTube in the chat earlier. So you can find this and other recordings of other webinars and outreach we've done in that YouTube channel. Any other questions? Ina also mentioned in the chat our additional outreach opportunities are Ask Us Anything. And I believe there's a last minute questions webinar as well. And so please feel free to reach out to those, or if you have specific questions about your portfolio or what you're seeing in the DDX, email 2030commitment@ai.org. Thank you, everyone, and good luck. Happy reporting.
Thank you.